With these spiral twist blanks, I like to start off by finding the center of the blank where the dowel protrudes. Now on this end, you'll notice the dowel doesn't come all the way through. Sometimes it's a little closer to the end, sometimes it's a little farther in. We can't really do much with this. I don't want to start drilling on an open hole. I want to start drilling on a flat surface. So we're going to grab a center fine tool. I'm going to line the blank up and just go ahead and make my marks to find the center of this blank. I like to mark all four corners, and you'll see why in a second. In the event the blank is not perfectly square, and that looks like that might be the case, you'll see double lines. You can find the exact center of where all of those lines intersect, and I use a punch to put a hole right at that point. If you were very observant, you might have noticed that I moved a tiny bit as I punched the center of my blank, and I wasn't dead center. So I went back, found dead center, and punched it multiple times to get myself a nice indentation in the blank. This is the drive center that I want to use to hold my blank. The nice thing about this one is that the center is spring loaded. So when I put it into the dimple and I tighten the tailstock, you'll see that it's going to push the blank into the drive center, and these little teeth are going to grab and allow me to spin this and efficiently true it. I'm going to need to be extremely careful while truing this blank because this drive center is so large. I don't want to run my skew into it. Those teeth will probably destroy the blade on my skew. I've got my blank somewhat true. You can still see flat spots along the blank, but that's all right. This will be very easy for me to grip in my vise and to drill. If I had left it in its native form, you can see that this would be tough to grab and be able to hold square to drill down the center. So we want to get it at least partially round. We'll be using a Sierra pin kit with this, so I've got to use a 27/64" bit. That's another reason why I don't want to go any smaller, because you can see we're already getting tight on how much meat we're going to have on either side of the blank as we drill down through it. I brought the blank over to the drill press. I've got it gripped tightly in the vise. You don't want to grip too tightly because as you drill through the blank, between the heat and the pressure of the jaws, you can actually crush the blank. So I just have it snug enough to keep it from spinning. I've gone ahead and found the center of the blank with the drill bit, and we're ready to begin drilling. We're going to take our time and we're going to drill very slowly with this blank. I'm stopping because I noticed the blank starting to kind of sink into the vise. And what I think is happening is I've cut through the layers of Spectaply and I've hit the Purple Heart on the other end, which is a much harder wood. And I think the bit, it's cutting, but it's also putting downward pressure on the blank. So what I'm going to do is just very carefully lift the blank. And I'm going to try to lift it right onto the bit. And the reason why I'm doing this is I want to ensure that I drill straight down through my blank. I'm going to adjust my table up a little bit. And I'm going to attempt to just tighten slightly on the blank. And the hope now is I can finish drilling down through my blank. This is the part that always gets a little nerve-wracking because it is possible that you can destroy the blank instantly when you do this. When I removed the blank from the vise, I could feel a lot of heat radiating from the blank. You'll notice I've got a nice smooth surface here, as well as a nice smooth surface here. You could see where the bit was working its way through the blank. And I think what happened is the buildup of heat just let the blank separate. You can see if I put it back together, I get a really nice fit. So what we're going to do is get some tight bond, and we're going to attempt to put this blank back together. We'll let it dry, and then we'll continue with the drilling process. I'm going to use a very liberal amount of glue because I want to make sure we get good adhesion, and I'm concerned that perhaps I didn't have a good enough layer of glue on there the first time, and that's why this gave away. Do my best to line this blank back up. Okay. I'm just feeling around the outside of the blank to make sure that I can feel the surface, and there we go. What I don't want to do is let this slide one way or the other, and then I can't pick up where I left off and drill right down the center of this blank. It feels pretty good to me. I'm going to set it aside. We're going to let it dry overnight, and then we'll come back tomorrow and we'll finish drilling. I've got my blank turned down to the bushings, and I'm going to use a little thin CA glue, and I'm going to put a coat on here, maybe 2 coats, to act as a sanding sealer. I got rid of all the low spots on my blank, but you can see there are a lot of centrifugal scratches, and to combat those, we're just going to come back and sand our blank from end to end. I'm using the same grit sandpaper. The blank has been sanded to 400 grit. I'm just going to clean it with some denatured alcohol and get all of the sanding dust off of the blank. Looks pretty darn good. I like it. I'm glad we took that little blue off the red area. I think it really makes a huge difference in how the blank looks. I've got the blank transferred to my nonstick bushings, and I'm going to go ahead and clean it one additional time with denatured alcohol. And the reason for doing this is because when I transferred the blank from the turning bushings onto the nonsticks, I had to touch it with my hands. I don't want any oil from my skin on the blank because it could cause issues with the CA glue finish. I've got a really nice CA finish on my blank. I'm enjoying how it looks, but if you watch the reflection, you can see the orange peel effect. We still need to micro mesh this blank. So we're going to start off by getting it off the nonstick bushings, getting it back onto the turning bushings, and we're going to micro mesh it. I will come back and show you what it looks like when I'm finished micro meshing. The micro mesh really does a nice job. When you first start sanding with it, you see that shiny finish kind of haze up a little bit, and you start thinking, oh man, I just ruined my blank. But there are 9 total pads, and as you progress through the pads, by the time you get to the final one, you can start seeing the reflection gets sharper and sharper each consecutive pad. And when you finally get to that last pad, it just really looks amazing. It almost looks like you could stop here, but we're not. We're going to go ahead, apply some Renaissance wax to this, and then we're going to buff it up on our buffing wheels. I want to get a good coat of wax on the blank, and we'll come back and work the wax in with our finger, waiting until we can feel kind of a little friction from the blank. I can feel the blank pulling at my skin right there. All the way across, I can feel a pretty even pull on my skin of my finger, so I know that blank is ready for the buffing wheels. I've bumped the lathe speed up to about 1200 RPMs. I'm ready to assemble this blank into a kit, and you may notice that the nib and the transmission are already assembled. That's because moments before preparing to assemble this, I went ahead and disassembled another pin that I no longer wanted to keep as a pin. I'm going to put my cap into the back of my blank. Whoa, we're going to catch that. Lay it out of the way. I'm going to use a bushing here to protect my blank. I'm going to get this into the press. We want to pay close attention. You'll see how I'm moving it and I'm getting a little bit of an angle there. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we keep this blank perfectly square to the cap as we're pressing. Uh-oh. I grabbed it real quick. I'm going to try to push down. There we go. I don't want to go in at an angle, but it's... Uh-oh. We're getting there. There we go. I don't like the sounds that I heard. What I heard were some popping, so I'm going to check my blank. Okay, not too bad, not too bad. I don't see any cracking. I got a little nervous because I made one of these pins the other day, and whenever I pressed the cap in, I heard some cracking, and I saw some cracks in the CA. This one looks pretty darn good. Let me get that bushing out of there. There we go. Didn't that make a nice looking pin? I'd really like to thank you for joining me in the shop for the turning of this segmented Spectaply twist blank. I've been making these for a while. I really enjoy making them, and I've had a lot of people ask me, are you going to teach us how to make these? I want to let you know that I have another channel called WhatchadoinBob. I'll put a link to it in this video description. And on that channel, I show daily updates as I was building these blanks. And if you want, you can kind of follow those updates and you can pretty well figure out the process and how I did it. If you're more interested in plans, I want you to know that I opened an Etsy store called TheRJBWoodturnerShop, and I'll put a link to that in the description as well. And you can go there and purchase the plans for how to make these blanks if you're so interested. I want to thank you for joining me in the shop. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon, and have a great day.